So today I have the pleasure of talking to Anton. Please introduce yourself and your business to our community.
Thanks, Claire. My name is Anton Gunter. I'm Managing Director of Global Freight Services. Global Freight Services is a Telford-based international freight forwarder, established about 26 years ago, and now deal with road, air, sea, courier, and all aspects of customs clearances. In turn, also with regards to Brexit, we deal with customs clearances and make sure that people can move their stuff freely and nice and easily.
Fantastic. And Anton, who would you say your best customer is?
For us, I think well, in a funny way, I think our best customer is the one who pays. And I think it's not necessarily the biggest companies in the world. It's not the smallest companies in the world. I think it's for us, we've always tried to deal with customers that are small at first. In other words, if you're simply starting out on an international journey and then helping them to develop their international strategy in terms of freight. And I think for us as a smallish freight forwarder, we work well with our small to medium-sized businesses. Having said that, though, I think it's also fair to say we do have a number of large customers, large companies that we deal with, and everyone's needs and wants are different in terms of want their product now, etc., etc. So I think for us, when you say what is our ideal customer, it's anyone from someone wanting to ship one box to someone wanting to ship 10 containers per month and anything in between, whether it be road, air, or sea.
Fantastic. And I am going to go there and mention the COVID, because over the past couple of years, that landscape has obviously changed for freight and the supply chain, supply and demand. What would you say one of the biggest changes you've noticed over that time might be?
Strangely, and this is quite a strange one, it's people's ability and want to do something like we're doing this afternoon is Zoom meetings or video face-to-face. I think that is one of the things that actually is a positive since COVID. We're now seeing more and more customers more likely to say, Anton, can we jump on a Zoom or a Teams or whatever the platform is to have a chat about a problem or chat about a new shipment or whatever the case may be. Likewise, we also saw during COVID that our interaction with overseas agents in various countries obviously went higher because they didn't have anything to do, we didn't have anything to do, so we could just keep chatting and actually getting to know people. From a negative point of view, I think what we've also seen is with supply chains breaking down, not because of anything other than China's got COVID, so therefore we lock down, then the UK gets COVID, we lock down, and we lock down at different times. I think people's tolerance levels were nice and high. You could always explain to people during that COVID pandemic that actually we were trying to load containers, we were trying to ship containers. But from now, I think the biggest change we've seen is that the customer understands the supply chain a lot better. In previous times before COVID, I would say there was a high demand on we need it now, we need it now, we need it now, and you couldn't explain anything, whether that be no space on vessels, etc. But I think customers have taken that time during the quiet time during COVID to actually look at their supply chains and understand what the important bits are in order to get a smooth shipment. And I think we're certainly seeing a lot of our customers have a better understanding of their supply chain, have a better understanding of how the supply chain works, and sometimes have a better understanding of how we do things, which means that they understand how we do things. And therefore, when we say there's a shortage of vessel space, they understand that actually there could be a shortage of vessel space, and they understand what that actually means.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? How their patience levels seem to have increased, and therefore they can expect, or that they're happier with a 3 to 5 day instead of 24 hours. So no, that's really good.
I think that's true to a certain degree, but I also think people's tolerance levels have dropped again. I think since the UK is unlocked, well, we're unlocked. Why is the rest of the world not unlocked? If you look at places like California or LA, they had massive problems with port worker shortages, etc. If you look at someone like Cape Town in South Africa, they had massive problems with shortages. And now at the present time, when you look at shipping, the rates from China via shipping lines, we're seeing a massive drop, and that's just because demand is lower, but also supply from China is lower because a lot of the places are now being locked down and not able to remanufacture or supply customers. So COVID, whilst we always think about, okay, as long as it's gone in the UK, it must be gone. COVID certainly is still having an impact on a lot of places.
Yeah, almost like that ripple effect. It is still, in some cases, as you say, still out there at large, and yeah, it affects the world, not just here. So during the past couple of years then, we've just explored perhaps some of the challenges and some of the highlights. What would you say some of the successes have been for you as a company?
Broadening our agency. And when I say our agency, we're part of two networks, the Freight Lounge and the Air Ocean Network, and we're all independently owned freight forwarders, but that gives us reaches in places that we don't have offices. But I think one of the big things for us has been that growing of the agency, but not just growing of the agency because the agents have always been there. It's actually growing the friendliness, i.e., I'm more likely to speak to our agents about non-work than I am about work. So for me, it's always interesting to speak to someone in Vietnam, for example, about what the weather's doing, how is COVID affecting them, because once you understand that, you can almost go back to your customer and say, right, okay, we do have a shipment, we can't load it, but you can actually tell them why you can't load it rather than just give them we can't load something. So I think for us, or for me in particular, that sort of quiet time during the first long lockdown was because we were still working within the warehouse here. We were still doing shipments worldwide. We had a couple of people working from home, some furloughed. It gave me the opportunity to get to know agents worldwide, and I think I think for us that's been a real benefit for not only being able to give customers from the UK that assurance that we've got someone in that far-flung country, but also reciprocal business, and we've seen that also rise. So for us, the whole COVID lockdown has actually been a positive because we were able to slow down and actually do the things that we should be doing on a daily basis, but get into the habit of doing it again.
Yeah, slow down to speed up, as we
Yeah.
like to say. Fantastic. And what would you say one of your biggest learnings has been over the more recent months?
I wouldn't necessarily say over the last recent months, but again, coming back to COVID and coming back to learning, I think it gave me, I always understood or thought I understood our company accounts, but when you slow down and you've got days to look at things and you can actually analyze and ask that dreaded question, well, it's a dreaded question in my offices as to why do we do that? Why, if a lot of the staff will say to you, well, we've always done it that way. And you think, well, okay, is that the best way of working it? But certainly from my point of view, looking at our company accounts, understanding what makes that figure drop, what makes that figure rise, and ultimately understanding that when I do my profit and loss, how accurate is that profit and loss, but also how accurate is the things that we're trying to do to increase our profit and loss. I think over the last few months, it's become apparent that at times MDs or senior management need to almost have a lockdown of themselves to be able to do the things that are important, because we get so het up about sales and we get so het up about everything else that actually the little things that we did during COVID, which were really successful, we forget about and we go back to our own habits. So I think for me, it's taking a deep breath. Sometimes, on a Monday morning, working from home because it's quieter. I only have a phone that's going to ring if someone really needs me, to look at the accounts. So I think the lessons over the last few months is, oh, hang on a minute, at some point you do have to go back to lockdown, lock yourself down, and just look at those things that annoy you the most to understand it.
Yeah, no, that's massive. And thank you for sharing that. It's one of the things that we try and adopt here is that, that note on this day, I'm going to be doing this, because that real focus, just as you said, really learning and getting into the numbers there just helps, identify things and highlight things. So thank you for that share.
Can I just add that wasn't prompted. I didn't know that that's what you guys promoted. So I don't want people to think, oh, he's just working with it, so therefore, but no, that was not prompted, and I genuinely do at times just even take a step back, go and sit up in the boardroom and just look at things quietly before I actually make decisions. And I think that's something that I learned during COVID. And as a hot-headed South African, sometimes you make those snap decisions without thinking. Even sending out an email to a disgruntled customer, I now sort of type it in the afternoon, leave it overnight, reread it in the morning, then send that sort of email. So it is sometimes important to be as quick as you can, especially in exports. But generally speaking, when running the business, I think sometimes we have to just take a slow down, take a step back, think about it, and then apply what you already know.
Yeah, absolutely. I would totally agree. And a couple more questions for you, if that's okay.
That's okay.
What do you wish you had known before before taking on your position in the company?
That we were going to hit by COVID.
That crystal ball.
It's really difficult because my sort of journey to becoming MD may be a little bit different to a lot of people's businesses. As you may or may not know, I'm a new addition to the business. Although it's a family-run business, my wife, Nicole, started the business when she was 21 in 1997. And for many years, she ran it. And then through, I won't say fate. She calls it fate. I call it that it's actually something, I don't know, I can't remember what the word is now, but it's, she decided I joined the business maybe about 8 years ago, and I was the sales manager, did sales. I was that hungry little puppy that was running around doing all the sales, and she was the MD, ran the business. And at some point, if you've ever run a business with your wife, you get sacked, you resign, you get sacked, they resign, the arguing just gets, not on a personal basis, but for work, it just sort of goes up and up and up and up. And eventually one day you say to her, look, I'm resigning. She goes, you can't resign, I'm resigning. And then she says, oh, by the way, I've now got a new job. And so about 4 or 5 years ago, she decided to change tack totally and became a financial advisor. And so I then became the MD. So it's still family run every night. She's still the boss, so to speak. But I think if you ask me, what did I wish I'd known then when I got the job to now, I wish I hadn't asked her what she does in her ivory tower every day. I wish I hadn't asked her why she just sits in the office with the door closed, because I see why. I can see why. So it's I don't think there's anything that I've come across that I didn't expect. I think for me, when you take on the role, when you're just simply a salesperson or the sales director or whatever you want to call yourself in the grand scheme of things, you just assume that everything runs nice and smoothly. You don't actually understand the mechanics behind things. And I think on a daily basis as the MD, and I'm sure people within your community will feel the same, your marriage counselor, your school guidance counselor, your absolutely every human position possible to your staff. Especially when you're as hands-on as I am, you tell jokes, you laugh, you cry, you do it everything together. So I think for me, the one thing that I would say that I've learned is that actually the staff are more dependable than I may have given them credit for. And that might sound bad, but I think there is, when you're sat in one role and you look at them from one direction, and then you actually work with them in a different direction, they seem to pull through. And COVID was a perfect example of how actually staff sometimes, we all had those dark days of where's the next job coming from, etc. And there were times that they just said, look, we can't do anything. And that reassurance of, I think it was more them just taking time off, saying we can't do anything because there's nothing to do. Do we need to sit by our computers? And it was that trust. I think I learned a lot of trust over COVID. But I think if you ask me, what did I wish I'd known? It was the parenting skills you need to have in order to be an MD. I think that's been the hardest for me, because at times as a South African, it's just get on with it. But actually at other times it's listen to what they're saying and actually understand what they're saying. So I think I've definitely softened. And I mean, even one of my staff, when we announced that I was going to be the MD, he just came out and said, look, as long as you're not shouty, Anton, we're happy. And yeah, in the past, I may have been shouty. Now more, let's think about things. So I think the parenting skills, I wish I knew I had to, what I do at home with my kids, I've got to do it at work as well.
I absolutely love that. Thank you. And finally, I can hear how passionate you are about the business, about your team and the family around you. How do you like to switch off, though?
Do you know, it's going to sound strange. I love watching the news, and I know we spoke previously about triathlon. I'll come to that, but for me, watching the news is great, and because it gives you the opportunity to understand what's coming down the road. So, for example, Brexit. I loved. I know I'm probably the only Remainer who voted to remain who loves Brexit, and I love Brexit because it changed how we had to think about things in freight. It changed how we had to deal with customers, and that sort of, softness that we had to bring to customers who may have voted to remain and still wanted to remain and don't understand why they've now got to do all the paperwork, etc. So I think for me, I like to watch telly. But the news in particular, I love watching all the news channels. Like in the morning when I'm having my coffee, my cereal, I'll go through all the news channels, ranging from BBC to Sky to CNN to CBC to all of the news channels on Sky. I even sit and watch African news or something like that. I watch the Indian news just because of the industry that we're in. It's important to know things about the world. And I think sometimes we sit here in England or in the UK and we switch off and we don't care about what's happening around the world, but my industry belies on that knowledge. So I think I do like watching TV, sport, anything sport related. I do Ironman, triathlons. Sometimes I'm good, sometimes I'm not very good. I'm very lazy. I've recently started boxing. I'm never going to take on Tyson Fury. It's simply just I'm in this real spit and sawdust gym in Wolverhampton, which you put the gloves on, your hands smell, but it's just great for an hour just to have no tech. And I think that's the other thing that I'm really trying to do, is to get away from mobile phone, laptops. When I actually have time to spend away from it all, then I literally do try and do that. And I think family to me is important. I look forward to Christmas. It's quite strange because I actually hate Christmas Day. I don't like the concept of Christmas in terms of what do you want for Christmas, what presents are we buying, but I like the coming together where I can start being the greatest pub person or cocktail maker, and they never drink them because they taste terrible. So yeah, so I think family is quite important. I like watching my son play hockey. My son play football. My daughter play hockey. My wife and I, we like wine tasting. Wine's quite an important bit of a freight forwarder's life. It makes life a lot easier. So I think there's a whole raft of things that I like to do. Traveling, I do like to travel, but I think it's important that you have switch off time, but actually you don't always have to switch off all the time. And I think that's why my love for the news is so great, because even though I always like to know what other countries think of Brexit or what other countries think of the processes, etc., etc. So for me, there's a whole lot of things that I like to do.
Fantastic. And it's just nice to hear that you do actually have that time, because we're really important too. I always say healthy me, healthy business. So that really
I think it's also important. And again, we keep coming back to COVID and the lessons we learned during COVID. But I think COVID also showed you that although we always consider ourselves to be 24 hours, and if you can imagine, China wakes up at a certain point when it's 8 o'clock in the morning there, we're fast asleep. And then they want something immediately. So you sort of wake up in the middle of the night and you see an email, so you start answering the email because you stupidly picked up your phone. And I think COVID showed me that actually things can wait. If you don't answer straight away at certain points of the day, then things can wait. And I think it's for other businesses, it's likewise. If you close at 3 o'clock on a Friday afternoon and you're pretty much done your business, well, then that's it. Then you're finished for the day. So, but I also think it's important that we don't chastise company owners or directors who like to work on weekends, who like to do extra stuff. I think everyone has a driving factor, and as long as it's healthy, and as long as it's this whole desire to work from home. I offered my staff to work from home, and not one of them took me up on the offer. They just said, nah, we like the office. We like to come into the office. It's easier to work in the office, because during COVID, they found that actually working from home, they couldn't switch off. Their computers were constantly on. I'd see emails being answered on a Sunday afternoon from one staff member who I struggled to get him at 9 o'clock on a Monday morning, let alone, but because there's nothing else to do. So what do? They sit by their computers. So I think there is space for people who want to work from home, space for people who don't want to work from home, but it's just a case of how do you stay healthy within that? And sometimes it's important just to switch off, stop talking, stop doing things, stop doing anything, just go and be in the garden, mow the lawn, do whatever you need to do. And hopefully the business will still be there when you get back.
I'm pretty sure it would. And actually, Anton, to wrap up, what 3 words would you use to summarize your journey so far?
3. I've only got 3.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fun. That's what I would say. Wow, that's fun. Because I think everything I've done, and I've traveled from South Africa on the back of a truck to get into England, which is, I know, quite political at the moment. I did it legally. I just want to add that for anyone who starts looking at my immigration status. I've spent time in the Navy. I've been in the Army. I've worked with fine art. I've done shipping all around the world. I've traveled around the world with the Navy. I've traveled around the world with work. But I think for me, it's always important that you do have your bad days, and Mondays in particular. If anyone wants to ring me on a Tuesday to Friday, not Monday. I hate Monday. I don't know why anyone would like Mondays. But I think it's important that you enjoy what you do. And I think if you enjoy what you do and you can infuse your customers into what you do, then I think you're going to be successful. And I think for us, we always try and infuse our customers, because you do get a lot of people that just want to be negative about everything. And genuinely, like Brexit, COVID, you can list the whole things. We've, as freight companies, we've had everything in the last 2 or 3 years. We've left one of our biggest trading blocks. We've had to adapt to that. We've had COVID. We've had ship space. We've had a ship get stuck in the Suez Canal, which no one thinks will ever happen, but it did. So I think it's enthusiasm, but genuinely, wow, that's fun. I think that's my mantra. Whether the profit and loss says that at the end of the year, that's a different matter. But I think you need to still have that enthusiasm for your business.
That's amazing. Anton, thank you so much for joining us today. Good luck and to your success.
Thank you.